Hello everyone, welcome to another video. This time I'm at home. The past few weeks I've just been chilling at home and I thought it would be nice to try and film again because it's been a while and I've just been kind of like a vegetable recovering from the semester and everything, settling into summer. But I thought it would be nice to start off with a book video just to kind of refresh on what I've been reading and get back into the groove of filming again, and also to maybe ask for some recommendations as we go into the summer because I feel like I have just kind of exhausted my list of books that I've wanted to read for the past couple months. So feel free to get some tea or coffee and just kind of sit down and I will chat through the books I've read in the past 2 months. The first book I read in April was Beautiful World, Where Are You by Sally Rooney. It's Sally Rooney's third novel, I think, and obviously Sally Rooney is incredibly famous. She's written Conversation with Friends and Normal People, and both of those books were incredibly popular, and so I think there's a lot of hype around this third one, or like a lot of anticipation around it. The novel itself, like most of Sally Rooney's novels, are like the concept is pretty simple. It's just about two friends and their lovers kind of as they're navigating their relationships, and one of the friends is like works at a magazine, I think like a literary magazine, and one of the friends is like a famous writer who kind of moves to the countryside of Ireland just to like kind of like recuperate after suddenly like becoming extremely famous. So a lot of people have kind of talked about, you know, is how much of this is based on Sally Rooney's own experience, etc., etc., etc. But obviously I can't really speak to that. So overall, I thought the book was very enjoyable. I really liked it as kind of like a calm, steady read. I think that Sally Rooney's prose is almost always very easy to read, and I'm really appreciative of that because sometimes writers just be making books way too hard and dense for no reason. I think overall that it was really enjoyable. I didn't really find myself super bored throughout or anything like that. The only thing is that it is 4 characters as opposed to some of her other books. Actually, I don't remember Conversations with Friends that well, but I know Normal People was obviously focused on 2 and kind of their relationship, and I thought that balancing 4 characters was a little difficult in this one, in that like I thought a lot of the characters, especially like the male characters who were kind of like the love interests, fell a little flat to me and I wasn't really invested in their storyline as much. So I wonder, you know, if also because of that now, like a month and a half after I've read the book, I honestly can't really remember that much from it, which maybe is like a sign of how really enjoyable it was. But during the moment I really liked it. I think I personally prefer Conversations with Friends and Normal People more than this one. They just are more memorable to me. But overall, I am a decent Sally Rooney fan. I just feel like, you know, I'm not going to say that she is the greatest writer of our generation or anything, but I don't think that, you know, she deserves any criticism for her success. I think her books really run the line between like very easy to read and then also dealing with important, serious, you know, heavy things really well. I was kind of in a reading slump at this time and it helped me find one that to stick with. So I gave the book 3.5 stars on Storygraph, which, by the way, is where I keep all of my reviews and kind of log which books I've read and stuff, and I can link that down below. So the second book I read was Skinship by Yoon Choi. This is a book that I've been looking forward to for a really long time. It's a collection of short stories about Korean American kind of immigrant diaspora families, and it was also the book that we chose to read for April for our Asian American Students Association book club, and so that kind of aligned really well. Yeah, spoiler alert, I did not finish this book. When it's a collection of short stories, I feel less guilty about not finishing the book because it's usually I've read a couple of the stories, haven't read a couple of the others. But basically, I read the first couple and it just felt a little like a slog to read. I think the writing to me just felt a little like over-explanatory. I felt like I was being told a lot about the characters, and also at times it was like, I think there's a way to do kind of domestic realism, I guess, or like to try and really elevate the everyday ordinary stuff into like something that is of meaning and like serious, and I usually really like that, but I just felt like this was trying a little too hard, or like I didn't feel as connected to the characters and as these moments is like really significant. You know, kind of going along with that, I think that in general when it comes to writing immigrant stories, there's kind of a choice that the author makes on how much to explain and how much not to explain, you know, who is kind of the intended audience and stuff like that. And I think it's, you know, up to the author's choice, but I felt like personally with this one, I was just getting way too much explanation about like the language, about, you know, just these sorts of things that are going through these characters' heads as they immigrate. And maybe it's, you know, something I would have enjoyed a couple of years ago when I was trying to process, you know, my own thoughts about my identity, but I feel like now I was just kind of like, it just felt like it was over explaining something that most immigrant families might already know. And I think that's her choice, but for me, I think also it's kind of a tangent, but in general, when it comes to Asian American literature, which I really love and is something I'm really passionate about, I think that I'm kind of getting to a point where I just really want things that are kind of pushing the envelope, that are experimenting, and I've read a lot of those recently, which I'm really grateful for, but there's also some that just kind of feel a little bit more like, I don't want to say regressive, but just like they're not pushing anything forward, and I just felt like this was kind of one of those books. If you gave it a try, please let me know. I know it is quite popular, but they're giving this 2.5 stars on Storygraph. So the third book is called Love by Robbie Doyle. It's a really quick, short novel set in Ireland. It actually takes place, I think, over a night, and it's kind of about these two men in their 60s, 50s, kind of meeting up their friends and kind of about their friendship, about themselves, the underlying things under their friendship, and I think overall just kind of an exploration of masculinity, especially as you get older, and like male friendship and things like that. I was really grateful for this book because I found it quite enjoyable and again easy to read. It's pretty short and a lot of it is based really heavily on dialogue, which I really appreciated. I just thought it was kind of funny and I got to know kind of the characters' personalities through that. And then also I really liked how information was kind of revealed throughout the course of the book, and so it you know, progressively gets more deeper. You learn more about these characters. There are kind of extra layers to their interactions, which I really appreciated. I know that some people found this book a little boring, but I didn't really think that was the case. I think it's just kind of like more mellow, but I do think that the storyline does pick up, and as you learn more about the characters, you kind of get more invested in the actual plot as well. The only thing for me is that because the story is kind of about the distance between what you're saying and like what these characters are saying and in their dialogue and the kind of the emotional things that are going on underneath the surface, I felt like actually because it's about that gap, I didn't feel like I was as connected to the emotional things going underneath the surface. So I felt like the characters felt a little flat to me, but especially their wives and just like the woman that kind of like they were talking about. I don't know, I just felt like they were a little flat / like I didn't really see them as real characters, which I think prevented the story and like the things that happened in their lives from feeling consequential. And so I rated this book 3 stars on Storygraph. So Love was actually the last book I read during the semester. I didn't really get that much reading done period during the semester, but after that I have read a couple of books since coming home for the summer. So the first of that is A Lucky Man by Jamel Brinkley. It's a collection of short stories again. I'm kind of trying to read more short story collections because I don't know if you've saw my last video, but I'm supposed to be writing one this summer in Seoul, so I'm trying to kind of get inspiration for writing and stuff like that. But I reread this one. It's been like 3 years, I think, since I've read it, and I love it. I love it so much. All the stories are just really incredible. They're really beautifully written. They seem also kind of quiet. Like they're not like super punchy or anything like that, but I think there's just kind of like this thread that runs through each of them that feels so like meticulous and masterful, and like each one kind of like wraps up so nicely. I don't know how he does it. It's just like really, really cool, and all of the characters feel very real, and like the worlds just feel very well fleshed out, even though they're so short, like the stories themselves. Yeah, I'm just so impressed. There are so many good stories in this one. A lot of diversity of characters in terms of like their age, the perspective, the gender, like it's just really cool. I think that speaks to a writer's talent to be able to tell a story from so many different voices. And even though the writing is really beautiful and lyrical, the stories are also really easy to read and feel very down to earth. So I would definitely recommend this. I kind of feel really inspired by it. And a funny story about this book is actually that Jamel Brinkley was a teacher of mine at one of my summer camps in high school, and he had just published this novel, or sorry, this collection, and then a couple months later, obviously after the camp and everything, the book kind of took off and was a finalist for the National Book Award, etc., etc. I just think it's really cool. He was a really great teacher, such a nice person, but also just really inspired by his writing as well. So I rated that 4.5 stars on Storygraph. The next book is a novel called Intimacies by Katie Kitamura. It's also a pretty short read, a quick read. And with this one, I just found the premise really interesting. It's about a woman who works in The Hague, I think in the Netherlands. She works at the court as an interpreter. And I just thought that was very niche, but like the world was really fleshed out well. I'm not sure if Kitamura herself was one. I don't think she was, but it just seemed very, very real. And I think the coolest thing about this book is that, you know, a lot happens and a lot doesn't happen, but there's this kind of underlying tension and sort of darkness, I want to say, that runs through the entire book that makes it, like, it's definitely not a psychological thriller or anything like that, but there is this like kind of psychologically interesting element to it where the writing style and sort of things that the details that Kitamura focuses on kind of create this darker picture of just what could be a very normal day, a normal week. And what's interesting is in a weird way that is never really resolved throughout the book, but it kind of creates this like kind of floating sense as you're reading it. I don't know, I'm trying to describe it, but it was really cool and I thought that was really well done. Even though I think that I didn't feel super connected to the main character because the voice is just a little bit like detached, I want to say, from some of the things that are going on. But I found the whole thing still very compelling, maybe just because it was a story that I didn't really think about before. And like I said, I thought the mood setting was really well done. So I rated that 3.5 stars on Storygraph. And then the last book is called Department of Speculation by Jenny Awful. If you watched my last video, I recently read Weather by Jenny Awful, and I really loved it. I thought it was just the writing style, and it was incredible, and I really liked that it was a fast read, very fast-paced, but like just like the quips and the wit that she has is just so impressive. And it's one of those books you want to kind of like keep and like read the random facts every so often. I had heard good things about this one. I heard that it was similar to Weather, like in terms of writing style. I know it's what she it's an earlier book as opposed to Weather. So I decided to read it, and it definitely has kind of, I guess, the classic Jenny Awful style, which I really love. I just kind of these really short, simple sentences, but that really kind of like pack a punch and also like make you kind of think about them in terms of like the larger meaning of the book, and also just a lot of random facts and like quotes and things that like go surprisingly well with the story, and that I kind of want to return to, as opposed to Weather, which, like I said, kind of deals with more like climate change, like a larger theme, along with like the minutia of the everyday. This book was more specifically about kind of a relationship and a marriage not like falling apart, but sort of disintegrating, and how the main character kind of is dealing with that. And I think that even though I really appreciated the way she portrayed sort of like marriage, heartbreak, love, etc., I found some of the writing to be a little confusing, because I think that this kind of quality that she was trying to achieve with her like shorter kind of simple sentences didn't really work with like some of the really complex emotions. And to be totally honest, at some points I was just very confused on what was going on. And so I think for me that this one was quite less memorable by the end, and also just felt like because there was that distance of like, I don't really know what's going on at certain moments, I'm not really sure if all of her choices like made the most sense with the story itself. But I would just definitely check out her work if you feel like you would like something kind of fast-paced but still really meaningful and interesting, because I have recently found her and I've really enjoyed reading her work. So I gave that a 3.25 on Storygraph. And yeah, those are my reads for April and May. I am so excited because I've read 3 books in like the past couple of weeks, and I'm continuing to read, and I'm just feeling so good about this summer because reading is something I've really missed. So hopefully there will be more book content once I get to Korea and afterwards as well. Like I've been saying throughout this video, I will be going to Korea next week, and so you can look forward to kind of like a moving packing vlog for that. And yeah, thank you so much for tuning in as always, and I will see you in the next one.